What's up, y'all, and welcome back to another how-to solo flawless guide here in 2025. Today we're going to be looking at the Spire of the Watcher dungeon. We'll be going over all the builds, encounters, as well as tips and tricks, as well as shortfalls that we need to be aware of during this dungeon. Before we get into any of the dungeon specifics itself, I would like to say a huge shout out to my community that we're building. We recently hit over 100 subscribers on YouTube, as well as over 80 followers on Twitch. So huge shout out to everybody. I want to say thank you so much. This has been truly a blessing in disguise. So without further ado, let's get into the build that we used for this dungeon. And as always, we're using the Thunder Crash Titan, specifically with Rally Barricade, High Lift, Thunderclap, Pulse Grenade, Storm's Keep, Knockout, as well as for our fragments we're using Spark of Shock, Spark of Feedback, Spark of Resistance, and Spark of Frequency. For our weapon choices, we have gone with the new Unsworn Trace Rifle found in the Sunder Doctrine dungeon. We have a pretty good roll here of Tear and Detonation Beam, but feel free to use any sort of trace rifle here because that's really what we're focusing on in this dungeon. For our primary auto rifle, we're using the Reckless Oracle, specifically with destabilizing rounds and repulsor brace. For our exotic choice, we're using the Microcosm. For our armor, we're using the Insurmountable Skull Fort. For our mods, we're using Hands-On, Heavy Ammo Finder, Heavy Handed, Kinetic Loader, Concussive Dampener, with 2 void resistances. For our boots, we're using Recuperation, Kinetic Weapon Surge, and Kinetic Scavenger. For our mark, we're using Reaper, Bomber, and Powerful Attraction. And for our Tablet of Ruin, feel free to pause your screen here, kind of get a quick glimpse of what we ran during this dungeon. This obviously can be modified to where you like it, and if you don't want to use it at all, you really don't need it here in this dungeon at all, because we have Knockout for our healing and Storm's Keep for mainly our damage. In short, the main mechanic of this dungeon requires you to eliminate a Minotaur, collect the buff that it drops. This buff will last 30 seconds at any given point in this dungeon. You then need to connect all the yellow cables by shooting the conduit in between to connect to the main power source of each encounter. For the opening of this dungeon, I would suggest to keep in mind of 2 tips here. Keep an eye on your Cyclopses up on the ridges shooting down on you. These can sneak up on you a little bit, so you can either take them out or move fast enough, use the cover that you have, keep them out of sight best you can. And then 2, I would suggest do not connect all cables individually. I would suggest connecting all cables to the main power source at the same time. This will prevent supplicates from joining. If you connect each cable fully to the main power source, it will spawn supplicants every single time. So if you do this all in one go, there will be no supplicants to spawn. Once you've completed the opening of this dungeon, the door will open up next to the power supply. You can then start sliding down the ramp to get through the jump puzzle. Follow the path on screen to get to the next encounter. You are now officially at the first encounter of this dungeon. We're using the same build, same weapons, and the same mechanics apply. We need to eliminate the Minotaur to get the buff to shoot all conduit and cables, connecting them around the tower. There will be 3 levels of this encounter. Once you've completed all 3 of these levels, you can then collect your loot and go to the first boss. The tip I would suggest for this encounter is again to work both cables at the same time, so that way it's a very easy connect at the end. And additionally, be mindful of the Hydras. Much like the Cyclopses in the first encounter, these can kind of sneak up on you. You can either keep them at bay by eliminating them or move fast enough to avoid all of their shots. Once you've connected all the cables on the third and final floor, you will then have to scale up just a bit to get to the first encounter. Again, we are using the same mechanics, same build, same weapons in this fight here. The only thing that we did differently is when it came to damage phase, we would switch from our insurmountable skull fort to a Curse of the Falling Star. This would give us a little bit more damage at the time of damage phase. In order to begin damage phase, you need to connect all power through the conduit and yellow cables to the power sources of each branch of the tower. On the fourth and final branch of the tower, once you connect it to the main power source, it will drop down into the tower and the boss will approach you. At this time, this is when I like to switch from my insurmountable skull fort to the Curse of the Falling Star, shoot all the side eyes on the boss, and then begin damaging the boss from behind a rally barricade after you used your Curse of the Falling Star. I would suggest rinsing and repeating this entire process as many times as you need. I believe I did it in 5 times, but if this takes you more times than 5, congratulations, you're better than me. After the damage phase, I would say switch back to the insurmountable skull fort and then beginning this process over again. As a tip, I would say be cautious of the snipers on this map. They're a bit relentless, so take them out as you can. If you can't get them, just sit behind your rally barricade and then use the Stormscape aspect to destroy everything in your path. Once you've defeated the first boss of this dungeon, you can then proceed to the center of the arena to collect your loot. Then you'll have to crouch and fall down the spire itself. You'll have to do this a few times. There's a few waves of ads. You'll have to jump in between some fan blades and electrical current, but it works the same way. We need to get the buff from the Minotaur, shoot the conduit, the door will open up at our feet. Just continue falling down the center of the spire. As a note, again, I would say watch out for these fan blades. These fan blades will kill you in one hit if you are touched in any way. Additionally, on the final floor, there is electrical current surrounding a Hydra. The electrical current around the Hydra is very devastating and it will essentially kill you in one hit, so do not touch this electrical current. But once you've made it past all 3 floors, you can then get ready for the final encounter of this dungeon. In order to start this encounter, we need to shoot the boss to get their attention. Once the encounter officially starts, we'll have Hydras spawn on both left and right sides of the map. We'll need to eliminate both of these so that way we can get the Minotaurs to spawn. During this though, supplicants will be spawning either on the left, middle, or right sides of the map, and they will be charging you and blowing up. So just be careful when you're jumping around from side to side when handling the original Hydras. Once both Hydras have been eliminated, Minotaurs will now begin to spawn. They'll spawn on both the left and right side. All we need to do is kill one so that way we can get the buff. Once we have the buff, we'll go to the inside pillars and shoot the nodes, as well as the node connecting to the main power door. Once all 5 of these have been shot on the inside, we'll need to check the outside of these towers to see if these nodes can be shot and connected as well. On my first check here, the right side are all closed off, so I cannot shoot these. So I move to the left side of the room, knowing both of these can be shot. I begin shooting the conduit and the yellow cables to begin connecting to the main power room. Be careful of the boss because he is very mobile here, so he is going to walk around and he's going to try to stomp you, or his shots in general will kill you. Eventually, you'll need to move into the power room where you need to finish connecting your nodes. There are some ads in here. The boss will also walk in here. Once the boss is in here, I would suggest finishing off your circuits and then moving back to the main room. I would also suggest killing or eliminating either the left or right Minotaur to refresh your buff. Once you're there, then shoot the inside nodes to close the door with the boss inside the main power room. Switch from your insurmountable skull fort to your Curse of the Falling Star, pop your rally barricade, and then begin damaging the boss after the EMP happens. During this damage phase, the boss will continually walk towards you to leave the main power room. A good opportunity to use Thunder Crash is when they're in the doorway, and this will give you a chance to stun them briefly, so that way you can recover or backpedal if needed. Continue backpedaling to the end of the room, switching weapons as needed to continue damage. Eventually you'll hit an immunity phase. This is a good chance to switch to your insurmountable skull fort behind cover. And that's it. All you have to do is rinse and repeat these steps as many times as needed to secure your solo flawless Spire of the Watcher dungeon. If this video helped you out in any way, be sure to give us a like, give us a comment, let us know if it did. We really want to know if you got your solo flawless from this dungeon. Additionally, we're making these prep guides to help out newer players for the Rite of the Nine activity coming out later in episode Heresy, so we'll be making a full build and full video of how to prepare for Rite of the Nine using these guides as well. So if you could, again, let us know if you like it, subscribe, follow, all that fun jazz. But that's it for us. In the meantime, take it easy, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.